What's going on, everybody? You are listening to Trail Tales. My name is Kyle O'Grady. Every single week on this podcast, myself, a thru-hiker, a peak bagger, a huge hiking nerd, interviews other thru-hikers and other peak baggers and other hiking nerds about their experiences on the trail. So this week's guest is a man named David Braunlich. This dude is absolutely incredible. He attempted to thru-hike the Appalachian Trail in 70 days, and he came so close to achieving that. We're going to talk all about that once the episode gets started here, but he's also done a bunch of other stuff, including the Colorado Trail and a bunch of ultra marathons, which is another thing that we touch on in this episode. So it was a lot of fun. David is a longtime listener and supporter of Trail Tales, so it was great to kind of catch up with him. David, when you hear this, thank you so much for coming on, and let's do it again soon. We're gonna get into the episode in just a second. First, I gotta plug all the things that no one cares about. Instagram at Trail Tales Pod. I'm actually live on Instagram right now. I'm recording the introduction live because that's just a weird thing I like to do sometimes. Yeah, at Trail Tales Pod. You can send me an email with any sort of guest suggestions or any sort of advice at all about the show, trailtalespod@gmail.com. And if this is your first time listening, be sure to head over to trailtalespod.com and go listen to some other episodes after this one as well. iTunes reviews. Let's do a quick iTunes review. If you want to help support the show, if you want to help more people discover this show, I know you're just dying to help me. You can do that by leaving a 5-star iTunes review. I will read it out loud at the beginning of an episode introduction, which is what I'm about to do right now. So this one says, great show as an empty nester Appalachian Trail backpacker wannabe. Wow. I follow a few of these backpacking podcasts, and this is easily one of my favorites. Honest, interesting, and very informative. Good job. That is a great review. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to do another one real quick here. This is a long one. I'm going to go as fast as I can. I will probably jumble it, but I'm going to try. I just found this podcast through your YouTube channel. Very entertaining, and I'm learning about a few trails I hadn't heard of, which is appreciated. As a 46er, aspiring winter 46er, and Northeast 111er, I still like hearing about trails that don't involve peak bagging. I'm 48, and I'm a hiker and cancer survivor. A thru-hike of the PCT, Colorado Trail, NPT, Long Trail, and maybe more if I can. In the meantime, I hike as much as I can and enjoy content like yours. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to catching up on Trail Tales. That is a great review as well. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to everybody who leaves these reviews. I have fun with them, and they are a great way to help the show, so I really appreciate that. One more thing, Kyle Hates Hiking on YouTube. If you haven't smashed the subscribe button to my YouTube channel yet, please go do that. Yeah, Kyle Hates Hiking. I'll have a link to that in the show notes. I think I'm going to start posting these podcasts on my YouTube in addition to my regular videos and stuff. So if you'd rather go listen on YouTube, you can do that. With that said, folks, I think we're finally going to get into the episode, my conversation with David Braunlich, Appalachian Trail class of 2019. I think that worked. I think it worked. Unfortunately, I didn't have a can. I had a bottle, so I don't know how loud it was on my microphone, but we'll see. We'll see. David Braunlich. I nailed it, didn't I? What's going on, dude?
Yep. Just hanging out here on a Friday night, about to talk some trail, so could be a lot worse.
Yeah, dude, that's right. A Friday night, like you just said. I just want to let everybody know this is officially the record for the latest Trail Tales episode ever recorded. Like in the day, it is approximately 10:27 p.m. right now, and this is the latest one. But like David just said, I think you just said it's a Friday, so it's okay. I don't have to work tomorrow. I can sleep the hell in, and I think I'm gonna do that. So yeah, that's why we're cracking these beers. Anyways, dude. First of all, I gotta say thank you for all your support, towards Trail Tales. You are a Patreon supporter. Beyond that, you're just one of the many people at this point who have reached out to me and just like praised the show, which is amazing, and I'm very thankful for that. So yeah, dude, thank you for doing all that, and of course, thank you for taking the time on this Friday evening to chat trail, which sounded very awkward the way I said that. Should I redo it? Nah, fuck it. We'll keep going.
Sounds good.
Thank you. But yeah, dude, just thank you so much. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So, yeah, why don't you tell everybody, who you are, what you've hiked, your hiking resume, all that stuff.
Yeah, so my real name's Dave Braunlich. My trail name on the AT this year was 70. I'll get to why I gave myself that name in a little bit, but in 2018 I thru-hiked the Colorado Trail, and I guess that was my first thru hike. I also did a short section of the AT that summer, and I did the entire Appalachian Trail. I guess now it's last year, right? It's this weird time for talking about years.
Beginning of 2020.
Yeah. But so I did the AT last year, and actually just over kind of the Christmas New Year's period, I found myself some unexpected time, and I did about 340 miles of the Arizona Trail.
Oh, nice.
Out of season, which was an adventure in and of itself. So yeah, that's it. I know there's people out there with a lot more experience, but and I should probably also mention that I've done a decent amount of ultra marathons as well, so we can touch on that too.
I definitely want to touch on that, because other than like a couple parts here and there in various episodes, I really haven't talked too much about the ultra marathons and stuff. And honestly, dude, I've probably said this before too, but I really don't know that much about them, and I'm kind of curious. I'm actually going to be having on another ultra. I don't even know. Is it like ultra runner, ultra marathoner? Like
ultra runner. Yeah, the term I'd use.
Okay. I'm going to be having another ultra runner on pretty shortly, who's done some pretty cool stuff. So I should probably prep a little bit for that. So this is we're getting two birds stoned at once here.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude. Jesus Christ. Hold on. First of all, you mentioned you alluded to your trail name story a second ago. Is that going to be like your end of episode story? Should I wait to ask about that?
No. We can talk about that right now. It's probably a good place to start.
Okay. I kind of want to ask you about that, because it's been a long time since I've asked somebody about their trail name, and I feel like that's something I kind of gloss over most of the time. So yeah, 70. Where did you get that trail name?
Yeah, so when I decided I was going to hike the Appalachian Trail this past summer, I had the, I guess, audacious goal of trying to hike the trail in 70 days. And I figured that, I would not meet too many people, at least for more than a few days, and I wouldn't really have that. I know you hate the term tramily experience, but so I knew I wouldn't really have that. So I wanted to give myself a trail name, and I don't know, maybe it's a little bit arrogant to kind of give myself the name of the goal that I was shooting for, but I kind of wanted it to be, like memorable, and I don't know, people, I would hear it's like, oh, you're that guy trying to hike the trail like super fast, like when I would, sometimes come across people.
And it also just like gives you some motivation too. Like if it's literally your fucking name, like you better kind of live up to it or try your best anyways.
Yeah, so.
Interesting. See, I was going to kind of like give you shit there at first for giving yourself a trail name, but then when you said, how you're going at such a fast pace and you're not going to like see other people, I still feel like you might have been able to get a trail name, but it certainly would have been a little bit more difficult. So that does kind of make sense.
I also don't want to have a trail name that I think is stupid. So that's another reason I picked it.
Yeah, there you go. Dude, trail names are so weird. Like, I don't even know. When I like, I mean, I've said this a million times on the show now, but I got mine when I was like super young. It was like my first backpacking trip ever. And it got to the point on my, I don't know, I had a weird thing with trail names on my thru hike. Like if you ask anybody I was hiking with, like Mullet Mike or Flossie or any of those guys, like by the end of the AT, I was like sick of like my trail name. I was like, I've been using this name for so fucking long. Like at one point, I remember I was in like central to northern Maine. I was like really close to the end, and some guy like asked me what my trail name was, or he just asked me like who I was or whatever, what my name was. And I told him my name was like Kyle. And like all my other friends just kind of looked at me. They were like, Kyle, like what the you've been going by Narnar this and like, why are you going back to your, and I just felt like such a jackass. But anyways, before
hilarious.
I like totally hijack this, why did you decide to do the trail like so fast? Like what was the motivation there?
Well, yeah, great question. A couple reasons is one, it was all the time I had, but more importantly, I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't seeking that challenge of trying to do it that fast. I should mention I'm a teacher, so I have a little bit of time off in the summer, and it just so happens that if I kind of squeeze a couple extra days on either end of that break, it was pretty much exactly 70 days that I had to go for the AT. And when I was on the Colorado Trail in 2018 and kind of later that year, the thought of going for the whole AT kind of really started to percolate. And I guess it was December 2019, I started making it public that this was something that I was going to go for. So, I started training, started swapping out a lot of the gear that I had used in 2018 on the Colorado Trail, just getting things lighter, doing training that was much more specific for the Appalachian Trail. And also, people say you can't train for the Appalachian Trail. You definitely can.
Yeah, I think that's total bullshit, honestly.
But yeah, so May 24th, 2019, 5 a.m, I was on top of Springer with the goal of getting to Katahdin by August 1st, so which was exactly 70 days.
And when did you actually finish?
So that's kind of a whole nother story there, but
is that the end of episodes?
No,
okay.
no.
I'm just making sure I don't spoil anything. I don't want to put you like in a position where you tell the story beforehand because I asked you to, and then
the story I have was from the Arizona Trail actually a few weeks ago. So AT, yeah, don't worry. So yeah, basically what ended up happening was I was getting slowed down kind of through the whites, which I had planned for. And I got to Monson on day 68, probably around 10:30 in the morning. And I actually have a buddy who lives in Portland, Maine, who's going to drive up to Katahdin. We're going to summit together on, I think it was a Tuesday when I got to Monson, and the plan was to summit on the Friday, which would have been 71 days. Mm-hmm. So I get to Monson, I have a mail drop there at Shaw's, get a bite to eat, get a few other things at whatever that store is there, and get a hitch back to the trail. And I'm back at the road there by 12:30 in the afternoon, and I'm hiking, and I'm planning to do like the last 114.5 miles in, what is it, like 3.5 days. And
Jesus Christ.
The plan was to go through the night on like that last Thursday night. But what ended up happening was that evening, I started kind of feeling a little bit dehydrated and just kind of walking down the trail. And it's like, I feel like really, really off right now. And I sat by this stream and just tried to get some fluids in and just kind of downed like 2 liters of water, and it really like wasn't helping. And I just started to feel nauseous. And, a few moments later, it was rejecting food, out of both ends. And it was,
oh boy.
It was pretty nasty. And I just decided to kind of set up my tent somewhere, and it's like, I'll try to sleep it off, and hopefully I can give it a go in the morning. And yeah, I got up at like 7, which is one of my like latest starts when I actually like camped out on trail, and I tried to hike like 3 miles, and it took me 2 hours. And for anyone who knows this part of the trail, so I'm sure it's probably most of the listeners, it was like the 3 miles kind of like right before you start to climb up to barren ledges. So you're like going downhill. It's not too crazy terrain, so it definitely shouldn't take you 2 hours, let alone someone crazy like me trying to do the whole friggin' trail in 70 days. So, but like I couldn't eat anything. I had no appetite, like no energy. And I get to whatever like lean-to is there, like right before you start to climb up the barren ledges. And I'm like, well, it's 15 miles back to the road to go to Shaw's, or I can just like somehow I try to keep putting one foot in front of the other and going north. And I just so happened I had like a little bit of cell service there, and I was actually able to call Shaw's and explain to them what was going on. And they told me that I could get out of the 100-mile wilderness. It's not even like a blue blaze, it's like a blue ribbon. And you walk like a mile down this, like, I don't even know if they call it a trail, but you walk out to this cul-de-sac and they can pick you up there. And, by the time I got picked up there, and I didn't know how long it was going to take the bug to pass, I was kind of like out of time to finish the trail. Like I had to get back for work. So, and that was like the end of July. So I ended up getting, I don't know if quitting is the right word, but ending my through hike there. But the good news is I had like a week off in October for our fall break, and I was able to, fly back out to Portland, Maine and get back up to Monson and finish the trail. So I finished.
You still did it within a calendar year or whatever it is.
I mean, from like May 24th to August, or I think October 14th is when I finished. I think it's like 140 days, something like that. So standard length.
But dude, even making it like north of Monson, like in that time period is super incredible. And dude, that's actually like a crazy story. You hear stories all the time about people, making it like a week in or a couple weeks in, a month in maybe, and then quitting. And I know your circumstance, you weren't really like just quitting.
I was only a little over 2.5 months.
But like Miles, like obviously you hiked way further than most people do in that time frame. And like, okay, so let me do distance wise. And you hear people making it to like, Tennessee or Virginia and then quitting. You don't hear very often stories of people making it all the way, not only to Maine, but like the majority, like through the majority of Maine.
I was past all the hard shit. It's like
you were literally at the freaking home stretch there. Like you said, like whatever, 3.5 days planned to finish the trail.
Yeah, no, I had where the turn off, that blue blaze, it was like 99.6 or something from the top of Katahdin.
That's incredible. Damn, dude. Like, I don't even know what to say. Because, like, I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people listening have heard, maybe they haven't. It's an old episode, very old episode, like number 4 old. But on that episode with Mullet Mike, my buddy, he had a similar thing. He wasn't hiking at the pace you were, but he also ended up quitting, like, right before the hunt. Or not, again, I say quitting. He was also sick. So I'm going to say ending his through hike, right before the end like that. Like, he was so close. And dude, that just kills me. It is nice to hear though that you were able to go back like shortly after and finish it up.
It was a little bit of a blessing because obviously, like, I would have loved to have finished it kind of in that continuous block, but getting back out to Maine in October and just kind of experience a completely different season. And the cooler weather was awesome. So that part was really cool.
How did you feel like when you're first getting back on the trail? Like it's just a couple months later, you just had this super ambitious goal and you were so fucking close, but you didn't quite make it, and you're kind of coming back. I don't even want to say like you're redeeming yourself because that makes it sound like you really like failed or something, but I don't know. How did it feel like when you first got back out there, like that first day?
I mean, it felt good. I was excited. The weather was like a beautiful fall day. The foliage was just unreal. And, my goal for that first day was to get at least as far as I had gotten on that like afternoon that I hiked out of Monson.
So you like restarted from Monson?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I didn't go back to that cul-de-sac mainly because, well, I wanted to kind of re-hike those miles and start the
Yeah.
100-mile wilderness over. I also didn't want to pay for the friggin' shuttle to
Yeah,
have
like
them
how the
drive
hell
me
else are
out
you gonna
there.
get out there to the
Yeah.
middle of like the yeah.
So, and it's like, it's like I have like all this time, right? Like compared to the time constraints I was under before. So it's like, I'm just
Hmm.
gonna re-hike those miles and kind of go back to where, where I had all those problems. And I did. I remember like I got to that section, I hiked into the night that night and I just kind of like waltzed through. I remember like that stream and like where I was sitting and where I was puking and where I camped that night. And I just like walked through like all that section in like an hour. It's like, wow, it's just
Damn.
been writhing in misery here for hours and hours back on July 30th or whatever it was.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
now I just get to this beautiful campsite right by this like roaring stream that night. And it's like, all right, well, now it's all new trail from here. So it was just great to get back on trail.
How about when you finished then? Because I feel like, and I'm completely speculating on this because I cannot relate to this at all, but if you had completed it like back in July or whatever, when you were originally planning to, I feel
Yeah.
like it almost would have been like a dash to the finish line and like
Oh,
it
yeah,
would
I
have
guess
just
that.
been like a weight off your shoulders almost. Like you
Mhm.
wouldn't I feel like, and again, speculating, but I feel like maybe you wouldn't have been able to like soak it in as much because you would have just been like, okay, thank fucking God, like I'm done with this. I don't know. You obviously you got to maybe like I don't want to say like chill out, maybe not like miles wise. I don't know what you hiked through there, but at least like the pressure of trying to finish with that goal or whatever probably wasn't as much because you didn't finish the goal. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know what I'm saying here. How did it feel when you finished, David? That's what I probably should have just said before I went on that tangent. But
Yeah, I mean, obviously it feels great to finish, but to be honest, like it felt a little bit like I had finished just like a short section hike because from the road in Monson to top of town is only 114.5 miles, so it's kind of how it felt. But at the same time, is like knowing that I had completed the entire Appalachian Trail was definitely a cool feeling.
mhm.
Yeah, and that day is like I wasn't totally, free of time constraints either because the day I got back on trail was October. Let me pull up my calendar here. It was October 10th. So, right, everyone knows like, oh, you got to be up there by the 15th, right? So it's like I had, that afternoon on the 10th, and then I had, a Friday, a Saturday, a Sunday, and I was kind of targeting that Monday to finish. So I still had to pull some
Mhm.
pretty big miles, and obviously that time of year you have to deal with shorter days. And I was like, well, I could finish on the 14th or the 15th, and I was kind of making a plan those last couple days, and I was like, well, I can either just really take my time and finish on Tuesday, or I can bust it and finish on the Monday. And it's like, well, taking my time isn't really my style. So I got to
Hence the trail
yeah,
name.
exactly, right? So the Sunday, I got to the last, I think it's called like Herdbrook, or the last shelter in the 100-mile wilderness for Nobos. And from there, it's like 13 miles to Catawba Stream Campground. So I like got up at like 3 in the morning, and and I knew it was going to be pretty cruisy, and it just turned out to be like super super cruisy
Oh yeah,
all the
I remember
way.
that section. Yeah.
Yeah. And I get to Abel Bridge. Obviously, it's dark. It's freezing cold, and like I can see the silhouette of Katane coming over the bridge. So I feel like like who is coming over that in the dark? So, but anyway, so it's like, oh, I'm gonna have such a sweet day at Katahdin. Like I can see that it's clear up there, and as I get to Katahdin Stream around 9, you can kind of see it through the trees as you're hiking up there towards the campground, and unfortunately, it's all socked in. It's like it's all
Oh
blue
damn.
skies like everywhere else, and Katahdin is socked in. It's like, well, maybe it'll burn off, and like I was pretty fortunate with weather really all through the summer. So it's like, well, I had great weather in so many other places.
What a great way to look at it, dude. Like, there's so many people, myself included, that would probably like have great weather the entire time and then get one shitty day when they finish and be like, oh, what the fuck? Like, this sucks. So that is a great attitude. I like to hear that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and the fog did not burn off, but that's okay. It was kind of fun getting battered by the elements and the steep, like, you see on gut hooks like how steep it is going up the hunt trail.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just kind of expecting like, the climb up to like Franconia Ridge. It's like, yeah, it's steep, but it's just basically like rock stairs.
Yeah.
But
that's not the case going up hunt.
Yeah. No. It's like all this like rebar and pretty like technical, like fairly technical, like class 3 moves. And I climbed some of the 14ers here in Colorado, and I was thinking, it's like, this would definitely be one of the more difficult 14ers if it was a 14er. But
interesting. Yeah, dude, that was a pretty gnarly climb. Like, I remember waking up that morning that I finished, and I was like, I knew it was going to be hard, but I didn't really think much of it because it was like my last day or whatever. But I remember going up that, like, yeah, dude, that fucking thing was pretty difficult in terms of like the climbing and all that stuff. Again, like the technical climbing, not just like the pure elevation, like you just said. So yeah, that kind of caught me off guard. I would even say that from what I recall, I think Katahdin was the most difficult, like technically difficult climb of the entire trail. Yeah,
definitely.
Which is kind of interesting. I don't know.
And I don't know how you went down, but I went down the A-Ball trail, and it wasn't much better. Really?
Okay. I went back down Hunt, and the entire time I was going back down, I was like, why the fuck? Like, I could have had my parents pick me up at A-Ball. Like, why did I do this?
It didn't make a big difference.
Yeah, it makes me feel a little bit better than good. Yeah, dude, that trail's pretty gnarly. Let me ask you this. So you're from Colorado. You were living in Colorado before you left for the AT, yeah?
Yep.
So I don't usually ask this question to people, but I'm kind of a geography nerd, and the reason I usually don't ask this question that I'm about to ask, that you don't know what I'm about to ask yet, is because I feel like most of the time when people like decide to hike either the AT or the PCT first, it has to do with just where they live. So like me, for instance, Vermont, East Coast, my entire life, AT, no brainer, never even really considered doing the PCT for more than 5 seconds. And then it would make sense the other way around. You're like on the West Coast, you live in California, like PCT is probably going to be where you go first. Makes sense. You in Colorado, I mean, the CDT's there, but the CDT's a little bit different for obvious reasons. So I feel like it would make sense not to go there first, but you're still closer to the PCT. So I'm just kind of curious why you decided to go with the AT rather than the PCT, especially if you're trying to do a fast hike. Because again, I haven't hiked the PCT, but from my understanding, PCT is a little bit easier, or at least in terms of elevation gain and stuff. So it might be easier to do faster. Maybe, I don't know. Why did you choose the AT over the PCT?
Yeah, well, I guess the number one reason is I love the AT. I grew up in New Jersey, so I lived there. I've lived in New Jersey for most of my life. I actually lived in Portland, Maine for about a year.
Are you a Sea Dogs fan? or a Red Claws fan?
I did not get out to a Sea Dogs game, but I lived like I used to do running routes like right by their stadium. So,
nice.
I never got out to
I know my Portland, Maine, minor league sports.
I love Portland, Maine. Portland is an awesome town, but yeah, so from New Jersey, I had actually in 2017, I probably should have mentioned this in the beginning, but I had done like from North Vermont to Grafton Notch, Maine as like a section hike.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, going into it, like I knew what to expect in the whites, which I think like definitely gave me an edge. When I went for, obviously my 70-day through hike. But yeah, I mean, I love the AT, and kind of like coming out to Colorado and doing the Colorado Trail the year before and kind of getting a taste for the West and just how much different it is than the East. Part of me was saying, it's like, well, the AT is, I can kind of have, I don't know, maybe like a swan song for the East Coast before I kind of start tackling some more of the stuff out west. And I just, like I said, I love the AT and really wanted to kind of experience the southern part of the trail. And honestly, like I'd also thought about just going from like Springer to like Delaware Water Gap because, I'm from New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, well, I could just go for the whole thing and that would be way cooler. So
yeah, you might as well.
Kind of how it evolved. So
yeah. Dude, I can just picture you like your first day back in class, like just like limping in, like fucking like 3 days earlier.
Well,
I was like,
fortunately, we had like a few days, like we had like a week where it's just like meetings and getting things ready before the kids come. But still, it was like, going from just being like super like hiker trash to like teaching middle school is kind of a culture shock, I guess.
Definitely. Now that you've made it clear that you're from New Jersey, grew up in New Jersey, that makes more sense why you chose the AT. And again, I feel like that kind of goes back to like my rambled explanation before I actually asked you the question there. Like at the end of the day, I feel like it usually has to do with like where you grew up or where you are. Not always. I can think of at least a couple exceptions right now off the top of my head, but most of the time that's kind of how it is, which is interesting. Tell me about your Colorado Trail through hike a little bit. I did another episode on the Colorado Trail with Scott Hughes. Shout out to Hell Yeah Jesus. So I know a little bit about the trail just from that, honestly. But I'm just kind of curious to hear what your experience was like going from the Colorado Trail to the Appalachian Trail, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. So the Colorado Trail, I don't know if you want just like an overview about it or kind of like what my experience was.
Yeah. What was your like experience like on it? You said that was like your first like through hike, right?
Yeah, right. And then I said, well, the year 2017, I actually done a section hike in New Hampshire on the AT. So the Colorado Trail was my first through hike, but it wasn't exactly, I guess, my first hike.
Long hike, yeah.
Yeah, but I had gear that was definitely like too heavy, but I don't want to get too much into gear. But yeah, the Colorado Trail, like it's a great trail. It's just ridiculously beautiful, like really the whole way. And one of the most important things to know about it, if you don't know much about it, is it's really like only a 3-month trail from like late June if you're lucky through September.
Okay.
So yeah, that's something to keep in mind about it. It's very high elevation, like the average elevation is like 10,000 feet. And, I also like going back to my experience on it, I set out to do it in like a little bit over 3 weeks. And I think it took me like 22 days, which I think is fairly fast.
Yeah.
For it. And
it's how many miles is it again?
Well, the official length is like 486, I think, but I live somewhere a little bit different in Colorado, but from where I lived previously, it was like 30 miles to the start of the Colorado Trail. So I actually just like walked out my front door to the trailhead.
That's fucking sick.
So I added on some miles, and then you can hit some 14ers along the way. So I think I hit 3 along the way, and there's just side trails like right from the CT. So that's super convenient. And there's also a Collegiate West alternate. So it's like kind of the southern half of the Sawatch Range. You can either take a west alternate or the standard route of the trail. It goes east. And I, of course, went the west alternate. And that was some of the most ridiculously beautiful trail I've ever been on.
Nice.
So,
is that where like the CDT and this Colorado Trail split?
So the CDT and the Colorado Trail coincide for about 300 miles from somewhere in the San Juans to I think it's called Georgia Pass, but it's like if you're going Sobo, which most people do in the Colorado Trail, it's like the first time you really get above tree line is when you join the Colorado Trail, or when you join the CDT.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've like watched some videos on that and shit, so I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah.
So you did the Colorado Trail, and you had also done arguably like one of the most scenic sections of the AT. You know, obviously, like I'm not even gonna say that. I think everybody that's hiked the AT will say that the Whites are a very unique section. There's not most of the trail is not like that. So I'm just I'm trying to stress that here, because my question is, how was it going from, like, again, the Colorado Trail, like super scenic trail, and the most arguably scenic section of the AT, to doing like a through hike of the entire AT? Like, was it kind of underwhelming, I guess, walking through like the quote green tunnel through Virginia or whatever after having like, you know, hundreds of miles on like more quote, like, I don't even know, like scenic or whatever trail, I guess?
Yeah, I really like that question, because honestly, I think the whole green tunnle thing is a bit of a myth. Like the AT.
Have you seen my YouTube video? Are you just quoting my video there, or did you just?
Honestly, I have not seen your YouTube
I literally
video.
made a YouTube video called like busting fucking like myths or some bullshit like that about the AT, and one of them was that the AT is a green tunnel. So you pretty much just quoted my title, which means it's true, people. That's right.
But yeah, the AT is beautiful, and you know, people are like, oh well, you know, you're in the trees a lot. It's like, yeah, you're in the trees a lot, but you know, that is still beautiful, and there are views, and especially, you know, at the pace I was going at, like, you get to views all the time. And like I mentioned when I was talking about, you know, my Katahdin day, I had great weather just for so much of the trail, and you know, I didn't get any rain on my through hike until like after Roan Mountain, which is, I know,
Wow.
ridiculous. But
Yeah.
actually, I actually don't think that's. I had a storm in like the middle of the night, like,
But not
the
like while you
day
were
after
hiking.
I finished the Smokies. A little bit that morning, now that I remember, but I didn't just get like soaked like for an afternoon until like after Roan Mountain.
Nice. That's always good. I'm so glad
Yeah.
you said that thing about the green tunnel being a myth, because like I said, I made that video, and I agree 100%. Like, I feel like people who say the AT is just like a green tunnel or whatever, they're kind of like not understanding a couple things. First of all, I feel like they're just comparing it to like the PCT too much. It's like, yes, there's not as much of a change in terrain, like a variety of terrain, I guess, as, you know, the West Coast trails, again, assuming, because I haven't actually hiked there, but just because there isn't as much diversity in the terrain doesn't mean there's like no diversity, doesn't mean that it's all like the same fucking thing. And number two, I feel like people that say that I feel like they underestimate the number of views that are on the AT. Again, like, it's probably not
definitely
the same amount as like the PCT. Like, I'm not gonna like lie there, but you still get views. Like, even through sections in like Maryland. Like, Maryland was like a 40-mile section, right? There was at least like 3 or 4 like viewpoints there, right? Like, and sure, they're not like above like Mount Washington, like above treeline views, but like there's still viewpoints. They're still scenic. So this idea that there's just like no views or anything like that either is just nonsense. So it feels good to have somebody else like reinforce my opinion.
Yeah, and to reinforce that point further, so like just after Uncle Johnny's, it's actually at Uncle Johnny's, I met someone who was finishing his Triple Crown. And you know, I was asking him, I was like, "Oh, what do you think about the AT after having done the other 2 trails?" And he's like, "Oh, this is awesome. I love all the trees and how green it is." And he's like saying it's his favorite trail.
So he saved the AT for last, yeah?
Yeah. This guy Cakes actually helped me out with the ACT a few weeks ago. I could put him in touch with you. He'd probably be a good guest for you.
Yeah, so. Dude, I'm always down to talk to Triple Crowners. That's interesting, because most people I feel like don't do the AT last, but I don't know.
Yeah,
and actually,
right.
you just said something there that I also wanted to bring up as far as like the green tunnel BS. Another thing that people assume that just because you're in the forest means it's boring too. And again, if you're used to like West Coast shit, if you grew up in southern, or I don't even know, like somewhere, Colorado maybe, used to like the above tree line stuff, then maybe it would be boring in that case. But I don't mind being in the forest for like long periods of time. Like I enjoy like just the like the green tunnel almost. Like I like being in the forest. Like sure you want to have some views and stuff obviously, but like I don't know, like there's a lot of times where I'm just going along, like for instance just on the long trail up here, you know, close to where I live here in Vermont, there's a section if you're going northbound coming down from Camel's Hump when you're like almost down at the Winooski River. There's just like some really cool like expansive like just like beautiful like forest through there, and I don't know, it's just like I don't know. You don't just have to go for the views too. Like there's scenery, you know, in other stuff as well. So yeah,
I couldn't agree more.
I'm glad that you agree with that, dude. We're like almost 40 minutes in here. I gotta talk to you a little bit about like the ultra marathon stuff because I promised I would at the beginning. So yeah, what have you like done as far as ultra marathons? Yeah, go.
Yeah, so let's see. I have a few tabs pulled up here. Yeah, I'll just kind of do some of the highlights.
Sure.
So Leadville 100, August 2018. So actually the Colorado Trail, when I had decided to do the Colorado Trail, I had also put in for the Leadville lottery. So you can't just like pay money and get in. There's a lottery you have to get through. And I was originally like, well, if I don't get into the lottery, I'm going to hike the Colorado Trail. And then, you know, I was starting to get stoked about the Colorado Trail. And then I got in the lottery and I was like, well, I think I'm just going to do both. So I was like, well, and then the more I thought about it is, well, I can do the Colorado Trail like 3 weeks before, in 3 weeks, about a month before Leadville. And that's going to be like a perfect high altitude like training block because Leadville, if you don't know, is like the highest elevation 100-miler I think in the world. And so like I was like super well acclimatized for Leadville and had a pretty solid race there, which I was pretty stoked about. Going into my 2019 70-day AT through hike, I did a few ultras, and I should probably also mention, because, you know, this podcast talks a lot about the AT, I hold the unsupported FKT for the Appalachian Trail in New Jersey.
Nice.
So I did that like December 2019. And then let's see, I did it Arches 50-miler that January, Black Canyon 100K that February, Behind the Rocks 50-miler.
You've done a shit ton of these.
March.
Geez.
Yeah, so the plan was to kind of just do like a bunch of these like 50-miler, 100Ks. And then the last one I did was Quad Rock 50, which for anyone who's ultras, this is a pretty tough 50-miler out here in Colorado with I think like 11,000 feet of elevation gain. So I kind of like stacked all those kind of big races, like pretty much like each month kind of going into my hike. So like, you know, I was pretty fit when I got to Amicalola. Mm-hmm. And then when so before I left for the AT, I got an entry into the Mogollon Monster 100-miler, which is you're actually on the ACT a little bit near Pine, Arizona. And that is one of the more technical and difficult hundreds. And like after I got off the AT in July, like I was pretty wrecked. I had pretty gnarly plantar fasciitis. And I was just like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this race. But, you know, some weeks went by, I started to feel better. And I started the race and battled out a finish in that race. And that race was extremely, extremely difficult. And yeah, I just did a little 50K about a month ago.
Just a casual 50K, you know?
Here in Golden. And then... doing High Lonesome 100, which is on the CDT here in July. And then Run Rabbit Run, which is, I think also might be on the CDT a little bit, though I'm not totally sure, which is another 100 in September. And then also hoping to finish the Arizona Trail kind of end of May, early June when we're out of school. So yeah, it's kind of just a 30,000 foot view, I guess, of the ultras I've done. So,
dude, that's fucking crazy. So again, like I don't know very much about these,
Yeah.
Your first ultra ever, like,
Mm-hmm.
tell me about that. Like, how did you get started with this? Because again, that's like my perspective here. Like, I've never done one of these. I don't know anything about training for these, like anything like that. So yeah, like your first one ever, I guess, first of all, why did you decide to do it? Why did you go hard like that instead of just doing a normal hike? And B, like, yeah, just tell me about that first one.
Well, yeah, I had actually gotten into running first. So when I graduated college in 2013, and I was pretty overweight and pretty unhealthy, I would say at the time, and kind of started like running casually. So I got to get in a little bit of shape and kind of get the scale moving in the right direction here.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of snowballed. And I started eventually doing some half marathons and then some road marathons. So I was doing a lot of like road
Okay.
stuff, and found out about like the Boston Marathon, and trying to that you have to qualify for that. And I started running some of these half marathons and realized like, I kind of have a knack for this. So like I was kind of fast at it, and I was like, well, I'm going to try to qualify for this Boston thing. So when I did my first ultra, kind of the idea was to have a run that was kind of longer than the marathon distance to prepare for the Boston qualifier I had coming up. So like this 50K I did this somewhere in Massachusetts. It was when I was living in Portland, Maine. It was like a month before the marathon I was hoping to qualify for Boston at. So the idea was basically just to run, longer than I would be running for the marathon to kind of make the distance feel shorter. Yeah, and at the same time, I was starting to learn more kind of about the sport, and soon realized it's like, oh, I'd rather do the trail stuff than the road stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of why I decided, to look for a job in Colorado, with like Denver area is one of the meccas for ultra running. We just have so many awesome trails here. And yeah, that's kind of just the Cliff Notes version of that story. So
Nice, dude. I feel like that's a more, I don't know, for some reason in my head, and you could probably tell this just based on the way I asked the question. For some reason in my head, I thought it was just like you went from hiking to ultra running, which it makes more sense that you went from running to ultra running.
yeah.
So maybe I should make a note of that the next time I talk to an ultra runner. But that definitely makes sense, dude. Let me ask you this. So again, coming from someone who doesn't do this stuff, let's say I want to get into this. Let's say I am a very experienced hiker, a very unexperienced runner, but could probably, do okay on a short run or something, a trail run. Let's say I am me, basically, is what I'm going for here. How does one get into ultra running, I guess? Like, let's say I haven't even signed up for a run or anything like that. I just want to start, like, getting my body ready or just, like, testing myself, I guess. How does one do that?
Well, the most important thing is consistency. Like with your training, just start getting out and running, and try to establish, what we call a base. So maybe you only run like 10 to 20 miles a week, but that's a whole lot better than like 0 miles a week, right? And you just kind of can build off that. And one of the great things about ultra running is there is a lot of hiking involved. At least for the vast majority of ultra runs, the cutoff times are pretty generous. Like even like the Leadville 100, you have to basically barely do better than 3 miles an hour to finish that race.
Okay,
Excuse me.
interesting.
So yeah, so it is a lot of hiking, though you do have to run some. Like a lot of times, like we'll hike the uphills or the more technical bits, but you got to be running the downhills. You got to be running when it opens up more. But yeah, just run consistently, and like you can finish an ultra. Like if you can just kind of slog out a half marathon, like you could do an ultra, maybe not even a half marathon, maybe just even like a 10K. You can just do a little bit more training and you'd be able to do an ultra for sure.
Nice.
So it's not as inaccessible as someone from the outside looking in might think initially.
That's good to hear. I'm like, there's this thing up here in the Northeast called in the Adirondacks called the Saranac Ultra Sixer. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but it's basically
No.
it's not like a race, but it's just like a challenge. Basically, there's these 6 peaks kind of centered around Saranac Lake, New York, which is like a town and a lake, obviously, and they're just like 6 relatively easy peaks. Like they're not super difficult. I've only done one of them right now, but there's this thing where people will do this Ultra Sixer thing. So actually in the center of town, there's like a little park, and I haven't actually been there, but I've seen pictures, and there's like just like a little pavilion, I think, and there's like a sign and a bell. And like you start at the sign, you get in your car, and then you go do all 6 of these peaks, and the object is to complete them all within 24 hours, and you have to go back to the center of town and ring the bell to like finish, and you do all that like within 24 hours. I think it's like 30, I don't know the exact numbers. It's like 33 miles or something like that, maybe, and like 10,000 feet, maybe. I think it was a little bit less than that elevation
of gain or just total gain loss gain.
Of gain.
Yeah, that's solid.
So I don't know, and again, like it's like, I mean, obviously people go for the FKT and stuff. And actually, now that I'm mentioning this, a previous guest on the show, Colby Ziemendorf, his wife actually holds the female record for that challenge, which is kind of cool. Catherine, I should have her on the show. That'd be cool. Anyways, I'm thinking about like doing this Ultra Sixer thing, not going for like FKT or anything, because I would not be able to do that, but just like as like my first sort of like quote challenge, like, right, like try to do it as fast as I can or whatever. So I don't know. I'm interested in this stuff. That's also a little bit different too, because the trailheads, like all 6 trailheads are separate. So like you go back to your car and then you drive, and like so that adds like, and that still counts towards your time and stuff. So
a little different.
So like it is different, but I don't know. Just as I feel like it'd be good for like a first like.
I feel like there'd be like an on foot one where you just run whatever distances you're driving.
They're like close, but they're far enough away that it would probably like at least like double or triple the distance. I don't actually know. You'd be on roads and stuff.
Perfect. That's right distance for FKT.
Yeah, so. that's true. I don't know. Maybe someone's done it. Shit, I'm sure somebody listening to this that's like an Adirondack junkie knows the answer to that, so they can let me know. You know where to contact me, unless you skip the intros, but. Yeah, I'm curious to learn about that. That would be cool. I was going somewhere with that. I don't know. What else do you think? Because again, like I just don't know this stuff very well. What else do you think should be mentioned about like the ultra marathons and stuff before because we got time for, maybe a couple more things before we get into your story here.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, don't doubt yourself. You can definitely do it. But if you're training, like consistency is the key. You don't have to, run 100-mile weeks. One of my friends just did what's called the Triple Crown of 200s, and he runs like maybe 30 to 40 miles a week. Like it's really like not inaccessible, and you can just go like so much longer than you would ever go in training, and it's just amazing what your body is capable of. Mm-hmm. And to just kind of go to these places, both like kind of where you are, in the world, but like also kind of in your mind, like mentally, man. Just like what it's like to be in some of these crazy places at like 3 in the morning, and you've been going for 24 hours and just kind of experiencing what that's like, and going through the night, and just how amazing it is when the sun comes up. It's a really kind of special experience that I wish more people could have.
When are you doing the Barclay? Dude, I learned about this marathon like not too long, like over like when I was back home for Christmas, like
the fact that you call it a marathon, like like you'd call the Boston Marathon a marathon.
Yeah, right.
Funny, but I don't know. I don't even know how to apply. I'm not on the inside enough to know, but yeah, that is pretty gnarly. I don't know, the guy who got the FKT on the AT, like Carl Sabe, like 41 days got into that. So I don't know,
really?
Maybe I'll have to kind of go back and knock like 35 days off my AT time and I can get in.
Dude, it's so crazy. Like, if anybody listening, even if you're not like into ultra marathons and this is all like going over your head, you should look this. It's called the Barclays Marathon up. Like, it's crazy. Like, just read the Wikipedia page. Like, it's fucking like it's nuts. It's like not even like a. I mean, it is, but I don't know. It's like the book, like the pages and stuff. Like, it's crazy. It's entertaining for sure.
No, it's crazy because it's like, you know, all these like ultras I do, it's like I'm pretty confident I'm gonna finish them, like when I'm on the start line. But that race, like, you know, this has been going on for I think 25 years. And
15
like
people.
50. Okay, you know better than me. I was gonna say something like 15.
I watched the video on it not too long ago.
There's 15 people, and you know, there's people who dedicate years and years of their lives trying to be a finisher at this race. So yeah, all the people who have finished, you know, have my utmost respect. And it's, you know, one of the, you know, finishing that race is one of the biggest, you know, honors you can achieve in the sport. So
it's incredible
I'm glad it exists. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, me too. I would love. I already had Darwin on the trail, so like my next like guest like dream is fucking like someone who's finished the Barclay. Like that would just be crazy. Another thing too, like this marathon for everybody, and you can't even call it a marathon. No. I'm not going to go into detail about it.
It's just called a marathon.
There's literally, like, once you go down the rabbit hole of explaining what this is, there's so much shit that I'm probably going to get wrong and forget and stuff.
Yeah, and just before we move on, just anyone, one video on YouTube, I think it's called "Where Dreams Go to Die."
Yes, that's the one I watched. Dude, check that out. Fucking crazy.
Because there's a Netflix documentary. It's like that's good for just like basic knowledge, but go check out this video called "Where Dreams Go to Die." You will not regret it.
I remember I was watching like the introduction to that video, and it was just like so cheesy. It was like this, I don't even know, this like animation, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, when dreams go to die, are they like trying to like intimidate me or whatever? And then by the end of the film, like you get it. Like,
your
get,
jaw's
like,
on the floor. Yeah,
it's fucking crazy. When dreams go to die, not guy. Yeah, definitely go look that up, people, if you're interested in like, even if you're not interested in like ultra running and FKTs and stuff, like this is just entertaining on its own. So yeah. Go check that out, dude. I should have, what's that guy's name? I should have him on the show. That would be crazy.
The guy who, was kind of the protagonist of that story. Let's say Gary Robbins.
Robbins, that's right. All right. Yeah. Shout out to you, Gary Robbins. I think that dream of having him on the show is probably going to go to die. I think he's a little bit above my pay grade. Anyways.
Oh, man, don't say that.
Yeah, that's true.
Slide on in. You never know.
You know, that's true. Dude, let's as I drop my bottle cap, let's do a story. You said you had something from the Arizona Trail, yeah?
Yeah. I hope this story makes a cut. All right. So the Arizona Trail. So you go through Saguaro National Park, right? So I camped kind of right before you enter the national park. You don't have to get a permit or anything, but basically you cross in, you're at like 3,000 feet. It's all those big saguaro cactuses. And basically those are just like the giant cactuses, right? Mm-hmm. But you start climbing up this mountain called Mika Mountain. And one of the super unique things about the Arizona Trail is they have these sky islands, right? So as you climb in elevation, the ecology becomes totally different. So like 5,000 feet, everything is like sage trees, and the cactuses start to disappear, and then you go further and further up and you get into these big pine trees. It's almost like you're hiking at the higher elevations in Maine. This is maybe the trees aren't as dense,
okay,
but there's snow up there, right? And there's maybe 8 inches of snow, maybe a foot at the absolute deepest. And I'm just kind of hiking through this, but fortunately I had a beautiful day. And I'm just kind of plodding along, and I start going down the backside of this mountain, and it's pretty bushwhacky on the backside. I'm getting pretty scraped up, but I'm glad to be going down again because, the snow is getting less and less, and get down below like 6,000 feet, and the snow is finally starting to disappear. And it's like, all right, I got some dry trail, and this is going to be a pretty cruisy rest of the day. And, as I'm descending this mountain, And I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I start to hear like some gunfire in the distance.
Yeah, I've heard it. Not ever like close enough that I was like sketched out, but yeah.
Yeah, so well, you might not know where this is going now. But,
yeah.
But I start going down and down, right? So it's like, it's like you hear some gunfire, and it's like, okay, well, whatever. And they start going down and down, and the gunfire is getting louder.
All
and
my
louder.
like European listeners are like those fucking crazy Americans.
I know,
Too
right?
political.
Like,
Sorry, I broke my own rule.
Yeah, I know. No, you're good. But anyway, the gunfire is getting louder, and it's not like, it's obviously not like hunters, because hunters, they wouldn't be trying to scare off all the animals, right? Yeah. So, I don't really know what it is, and I start looking through Guthook. I'm like, well, maybe there's a kind of a shooting range in the area, because sometimes you will see a sign, it's like shooting range in area, and it's like, okay, well, I know not to be freaked out if I hear gunfire. And, I'm scrolling through Guthook, so I'm just like looking at all the waypoints, and I don't see anything about a shooting range or anything about gunfire. And I eventually, I'm like, okay, I'm like a mile away from the trailhead. It's just getting louder and louder. And I'm like, kind of like, and I can see like all the way down into this valley below. And I'm like trying to see if I can like see anyone. And it's like, I really can't. And I'm just like, well, I'm just going to keep hiking and kind of just hope for the best. But, I get down to the trailhead, and it's this like pretty like gnarly Jeep road, and there's nobody there. And, I'm kind of at the bottom, right? I finished this huge descent, and, I swear it sounds like these shots are like whizzing, like I can hear like whizzes like going over my head.
Jesus.
And like at this point, I'm just like super like sketched out.
Yeah.
And at this time, it's like, maybe like 4:30 in the afternoon, and it's, late December. So I know there's only so much daylight left. And so I'm thinking like, well, they're probably going to call it a day when it gets dark. But, I was pretty sketched out, and it's like, I swear the bullets are like going over my head. So I'm kind of like in this ditch, like kneeling down, and I have some cell phone service. I actually ended up calling 911. I'm like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. And I tell them, it's like, I'm hiking the Arizona Trail, and I'm hearing all this gunfire, and it sounds like it's going over my head. And basically the guy at the 911 is like, are you okay? Like, you have all you need? You have enough food? It's like, yeah, dude, I'm good. But then there's like some road there. So, all right, we'll send a unit up there. And fortunately, it's kind of what ended up happening with that. I was like, well, I'm just going to keep hiking and hope I don't get shot.
It's like, I'm getting shot at, but like I got to make my miles, bro. So I'm just going to.
Yeah, right. And then the other, right, the stories, that's kind of only like the first half of the story, right?
Okay.
So it's like, yeah, because the forecast for that night was for a storm to move in, right? And you might think, oh, Arizona, you might not get too much snow, but that, especially like this time of year, is not the case. So there is a snowstorm moving in for the higher elevations, which is everything above like 4,000 feet. So I kind of developed this plan, and I was talking to this trail angel who's going to pick me up at a road that was like 12 miles from where I made this freaking 911 phone call. And I was like, well, I'm going to try to be there by 10. So I like text her, like, okay, I'm going to try to be there by 10. And then I go start hiking. And, I feel a little bit better because they said, okay, we're going to send someone out there. Who knows if they actually sent anyone.
Were you still hearing the gunfire at this point?
Like a little bit, but the trail kind of like went not where I thought it was going to go, and it kind of just like went like kind of behind these hills,
okay,
which kind of like took me, I guess, out of like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but like the Maine valley where I don't know where I thought they were
and this
shooting.
Did I hear this right? This is in a national park?
Okay, yeah, so I should probably clarify that. So we're in a national park, right? You go up this mountain, and you're only in the park for like 17 miles. So it's like I just got like on the other side of the barrier.
Okay, because I was like, I'm pretty sure it's illegal to be shooting like guns in a national park.
I mean, it's close to there, but
just barely. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I probably should have clarified that. But anyway, So I started hiking. It's like, all right, I'm going to try to make these miles and get to this road by, 10 when I think I can make it there. And it's like, of course, so like I'm going through like there's still this kind of lower area and there's mountains all around. And of course, there's just no cell service. Like I don't have any cell service. Like, and then I finally like you climb back up and it's like dark at this point. It's like probably like 9:30 and just a couple miles away from the road. And there's like a developed like car campground. So it's like my plan B is like, all right, I'll just camp there if I don't hear back from this trail angel and figure it out in the morning. So I get up there and, have my phone like off airplane mode. So it starts like going crazy when I do get a little bit of a signal, and I do, but don't hear anything from this trail angel. So it's like, oh well. So I guess I'm camping at this campground. So get down, cross the road, get to the campground. It's like 10:30, and I try to pitch my tent, and the ground there is just like as hard as you could imagine. It's just super, super hard. I'm trying to like pound my stakes in, and it's like I get my tent like sort of pitched, and I know this storm's coming in, and it's like, well, I hope this is good enough. So the storm comes in, and it's this like super like heavy snow, and I end up waking up at like 3 a.m. with my tent just like on top of me, and I'm just like soaked, and everything's wet and freezing. And it's just not a good situation. And fortunately, though, there were some pit toilets nearby, and I just kind of I grab my sleeping bag and my sleeping pad and just grab my packs or throwing things in it, leave my tent out there to get soaked, and move everything into the pit toilet. And at least it was dry in there. So yeah, right. It was my first time sleeping in a pit toilet, which I was glad it was there, because otherwise I just would have started walking. But yeah, and then the last part of this story, right? It's like, and so I probably should have mentioned earlier, like a few days ago, we had planned to meet at this trailhead where I was at 9 a.m. the next morning. So my plan was, okay, well, I'm going to get up and just be waiting by the road at 9. And by this point, it's just like dumping down rain. And there's like this little pavilion there, and I have like one tiny little bar service, and I get a text from the trail angel, and I'm like there at 9, and she's like, oh, I was just up there and I couldn't find you. And I went back down, and then also like it's this road that like goes up to the top of the Sky Island. So if it's bad weather, they'll close the road. Oh. Right. So she's like, oh, well, they closed the road, so I can't come get you. And it's like, I'm fortunate to like see this message. So basically I just start like walking down the road, and it's like no cars are coming. It's like, it's like 7 miles or something to get down to where the road closure starts. But fortunately, I only walked like 2 miles, and some pickup truck comes down the road and took pity on me sticking out my thumb in the pouring rain.
Classic.
And was able to get down the hill and in one piece, didn't get shot, didn't die of hypothermia, and get dried out. So had a happy ending there.
It all worked out.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. I've going back to like the gunfire thing. Like I've had many circumstances on my AT through like at least where I was like hearing gunfire off in the distance, but never like close, like never to the point where I was getting like sketched
close,
out. Yeah, which is, I can imagine, like even just hearing it off in the distance is a little bit like kind of eerie. So I can imagine that is not fun when you're up close. So yeah, dude. Thank you so much. This was cool, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Why don't you go ahead and plug anything that you want to plug? I know you have a YouTube channel and Instagram or whatever, all that stuff.
Yeah, so Instagram, my handle is just my name at David Braunlich, Braunlich. Also, if you search 70 on the AT with spaces, I kind of changed my like quote unquote name when I was on the AT this summer. So because people would ask, and I'd be like, oh, it's my name. It's like, well, no one's going to remember that. So, and then I just never changed it back. So I don't know if I will change it back. I kind of like it like that. But anyway. And then my YouTube is also my name. But if you could find my Instagram, there is a link in my bio. And kind of slowly going through the process of taking all the footage I shot on my iPhone and trying to kind of synthesize it into some kind of series on YouTube. My YouTube channel is like pretty small, but I put a decent amount of effort into the videos, and hopefully it'll help someone. If not, I'll have something to look back on.
Yeah, man.
And kind of remember my hike. So check it out if you want, but I'm going to keep posting these videos, and I'm probably going to post some Arizona Trail ones as well. So yeah, check it out. Cool.
Dude, thank you so much. And thank you for your continued support of Trail Tales, both Patreon and just being a listener and all that stuff, dude. I'm very thankful for that. And get ready for the Trail Tales Patreon, like, Google chat thing next week, which I still have to figure out the details on. But
I don't know if we'll be able to make it, but
wrong answer. No, just kidding. We'll see. Yeah, dude, thank you so much, and to everybody listening, thank you as well, and have a good one.
Yeah, you too.